Hi. Thank you for watching the video till the end. My goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. If you're interested in this type of content, please subscribe. I would be grateful to you. Let's move on to the story. Story 1: A nightmarish trip to Walmart. Jessica Harper, a young mother of two, never thought a trip to Walmart would change her life forever. It all began on a typical Saturday evening when she decided to pick up a few items before heading home. The evening discounts and the calm atmosphere of the store seemed to promise an ordinary, routine stroll down the aisles. Parking her car in the nearly empty lot, Jessica grabbed a cart and headed inside. The store was practically deserted, save for a couple of employees busy with their tasks. The time was approaching midnight, and Jessica enjoyed the silence, broken only by the hum of neon lights. She quickly found everything she needed: milk, bread, and a few packs of juice for the kids. Suddenly, as she passed the toy section, Jessica heard a strange sound, like children's laughter. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but the laughter repeated, growing louder and closer. Jessica cautiously approached the toy aisle, expecting to see a child playing hide and seek, but there was no one there. The shelves lined with dolls and cars were neatly arranged, except for one doll, oddly looking and slightly dusty, lying on the floor. She picked it up and examined it closely. The doll's face seemed lifelike, with wide open eyes and a creepy smile. A sharp sound, like a whisper, made her turn around. The empty aisles of the store suddenly seemed much more menacing. She quickly tossed the doll back on the shelf and continued towards the checkout. But halfway there, a strange chill ran down her spine. It felt like someone was watching her. Jessica quickened her pace towards the exit. But the closer she got to the checkout, the more distinctly she heard footsteps behind her. She turned around several times but saw no one. It felt like shadows were chasing her. Suddenly, the store's lights flickered, and for a moment, everything plunged into pitch darkness. When the lights came back on, Jessica noticed that her cart of groceries had disappeared. Now, her heart was pounding like crazy. An inner voice screamed at her to run, but her legs wouldn't obey. In the distance, she heard the same children's laughter, but this time it sounded right behind her. Gathering all her willpower, Jessica turned sharply. Standing before her was a tall, thin man with eerily pale skin and empty eyes. His lips moved, but no sound came out. He reached out to Jessica, and at that moment she realized this was not just a man, but something far more sinister. She stepped back, but stumbled into a shelf and fell. The figure approached, its face contorted into a horrifying grimace. Jessica felt panic engulfing her. Her heart pounded so hard it seemed ready to burst from her chest. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed. The store door opened, and a security guard walked in. The figure vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving Jessica sitting on the floor in sheer terror. The guard rushed to her, helping her up. "Are you all right, miss?" he asked, looking worriedly at her pale face. Jessica nodded, trying to catch her breath. She looked around, but there were no signs of the strange figure. She thanked the guard and hurried to the exit, leaving all her groceries behind. Driving home, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was still being watched. The next day, Jessica decided not to return to Walmart, but a few days later, she received a call from the store. The manager informed her that the surveillance cameras had recorded her fall, but no figure was visible next to her. Moreover, at the moment she heard footsteps and laughter, the cameras recorded no sounds. Jessica's mind swirled with questions. Who was that man? Was he real or just a figment of her imagination? She could never shop at night calmly again, and this incident remained an unsolved mystery in her life. Story 2: The ominous item on the shelf at Walmart. Mark Williams, a former soldier, was used to unusual situations. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened in one of the country's largest supermarkets. After returning from Afghanistan, Mark decided to take a job as a night security guard at Walmart. He thought the job would be easy and peaceful, allowing him to gradually adjust to civilian life. However, one night shift forever changed his perception of safety. One dark and quiet night, Mark was patrolling the store, checking if all the doors were locked and if there were any intruders. He noticed one of the lights on the second floor started flickering. It was a minor issue, but Mark decided to check it out to ensure it was just a malfunction and not something more serious. As he climbed the stairs, he felt a cold draft, even though all the windows were closed. On the second floor, in the electronics section, the light indeed flickered. Mark approached it and saw that the flickering was not random. The lamp flickered with a specific rhythm, as if conveying a code. Mark was not an electronics expert, but the rhythm of the flickering seemed familiar. Remembering his service, he realized it could be Morse code. He started recording the sequence of flickers, and after a few minutes of decoding, he got the word help. This message alarmed Mark. He decided to continue his inspection of the second floor and headed to the toy section, where he noticed movement. It was hard to see anything in the dark, but he thought someone was hiding among the shelves. He slowly walked there, holding his flashlight in front of him. As he got closer, a strange scene unfolded before him. Dolls, which should have been sitting peacefully on the shelves, were scattered all over the floor. Among them stood out one doll, which looked old and worn, but had a very lifelike expression on its face. Mark picked up the doll and examined it. On the back, he found an old inscription scratched into the plastic. Eliza. Suddenly, the doll started speaking, but its voice was not mechanical, it was almost human, piercing and filled with pain. "Help me," the doll whispered. Paralyzed with horror, Mark dropped the doll on the floor. He couldn't believe his ears. He decided to return to his post and call for backup. But as he began descending the stairs, the lights throughout the store started flickering and going out, plunging the building into darkness. In the dim light of his flashlight, Mark noticed that the doors he had checked earlier were now open. Returning to his post, he saw that all the surveillance cameras had shut off. Standing in complete darkness, Mark heard heavy footsteps approaching him from the depths of the store. He drew the gun he always carried and pointed it toward the sounds. "Who's there?" he shouted, but only an eerie whisper echoed in response. The whisper grew louder and louder, turning into a horrifying scream. Suddenly, Mark felt a sharp blow to the head and lost consciousness. He woke up on the same second floor where he had found the doll. Scattered around him were old photographs and documents. On one of the photos, he saw a girl named Eliza and a date -1978. It seemed this was the same doll he had found. Among the papers, he came across a newspaper clipping about a missing girl named Eliza who had disappeared in this area many years ago. It felt like her spirit was somehow trapped in the doll, and she was trying to find help. Mark realized that the only way to free her was to return the doll to the place of her disappearance. Gathering all his strength, Mark took the doll and headed to the old abandoned house mentioned in the article. It was located not far from Walmart and had long been deserted. He entered and found an old children's room where toys and furniture were still standing, covered in thick layers of dust. Placing the doll on the shelf, Mark felt the tension in the air begin to dissipate. Suddenly, everything around him started to shake, and he thought he heard a faint but grateful whisper, "Thank you." The doll slowly began to lose its form and vanished, as if dissolving into thin air. Returning to Walmart, Mark found the store in its usual state. The lights were on, the cameras were working, and the doors were locked. It seemed everything had returned to normal. He told his story to his superiors, but they didn't believe him. The surveillance cameras hadn't recorded anything unusual, and no one ever found the doll. Despite this, Mark never took night shifts again. The past had left an indelible mark on his soul, and he knew there were things in this world that couldn't be explained. Every time he passed by the old abandoned house, he felt a strange calm, knowing he had helped free a trapped soul. But even years later, he sometimes heard whispers of gratitude in the night, reminding him of that ominous night trip to Walmart.